All right. So I want to talk about certainty and humility. And especially in every context, especially in a religious context. You know, the 23rd of September and the 24th was prophesied of this, the days we just passed here of this year, was prophesied by some to be the rapture in the Christian context, the raising up of Christ-filled souls into the next octave, into heaven. And it did not come to pass. It did not happen that way. And I'd been hearing little things, little stirrings about it here and there that would come up, on my YouTube suggestions, YouTube feed, whatever. And I didn't know until I kind of chose to hang back on watching some of these videos, but I just now was watching a video and the guy was kind of breaking down where the prophecy originated. And I don't have the guy's name in front of me. But originated with one individual and then kind of spread like wildfire. And that this individual, I'm probably getting some details wrong here, but that he was getting visions and confirmations, I don't know, in dreams or waking visions, I don't know, saw from Jesus Christ himself, confirming that the date was the 23rd or the 24th. I don't know, he kind of says both. An absolute conviction, utter, total, absolute conviction that this was from God and that this was going to happen. Now, there's a lot to say there, a lot to unpack about something like this, because Christians, that's the hope, is the second coming of Christ, and there's a whole breakdown of events. The rapture itself, I've never really studied, in depth or in any, the theological background behind it. The little bit I've seen about it is that it's sort of a novel interpretation or a novel, I guess, evangelical. I don't really know the whole story, but I think within the last 100 or 150 years that this concept started to gain some momentum and precedence, and I think mostly in the evangelical Protestant world. It's not something I've heard Catholics talking about in the same way. Or, anyways, forgive me that I'm probably getting some details wrong here. But it just raises a lot of interesting questions, profound questions. Frightening questions in some ways, but interesting questions, which is, was this man telling the truth? And I don't think it was just one guy, but I think he was kind of the epicenter, and then other people had, maybe a lot of people had confirmations, and it kind of just snowballed. But was he telling the truth about having had a vision, having spoken to the Lord, and was he sincere? I don't know. My sense is, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did have a vision. Not at all surprised that would happen. And that it, seemed and that it was a powerful experience for him, powerful vision, and that he was sincere. Now, the fact that it didn't happen, a lot of Christians, now are saying this was orchestrated by the devil as a way to decrease faith, to dishearten fellow Christians, to make people lose faith. It was a orchestrated attack by the enemy. And maybe that's so. Who knows? I mean, it could also be pointed out that in the Bible itself, it specifically says nobody knows the day or the hour. Or I don't know the exact verse, but something like that. When the Son of Man, when the Son of God returns, coming on the clouds with fire, it specifically says, it gives that caution. Nobody can say the true hour. Only God knows. And it's kind of a dry point, and I'm not even gonna make it. Maybe I'll circle back to it. I'm just trying to stay in the fire of what's true here. And I'm not sure exactly how to articulate this, because there are powerful visionary experiences, prophetic experiences that one can have that are powerful, that bear every hallmark of reality, of truth, of power, of, and it's almost like, man, it's just such a hard thing to express because it's so obvious in my mind, but it's going to be so hard to, maybe not even possible to really get it across. But after the fact, everybody will say, well, he was deceived, he didn't have a good spirit of discernment. Difficult to express this. But the criteria for a true vision is evanescent. It's like a mirage, because it's powerful and it's true until it doesn't come true. And then the guy is deceived, and then he's a liar, and then he's confused and a false prophet. And see, it opens the door to the cynics, not the skeptics, but the cynics. I mean, there's just no, it's evanescent, it's quicksand, there's no firm footing here, really. Nobody is the authority here. That's kind of a hard way to say it, and nobody's going to want to hear that, Because on the one hand, you can just have a default of everything that comes up, every vision, deception, not true. That's a false vision. Doesn't confirm the reality that I know, and it's a false vision. But what about, NDEs, powerful experiences that people have? What about prophecies that are partially true? What about, it just holds a mirror up to the person that is commenting on it. And really what it does is it just reflects their own bias and their own psychology back to them. Because you can just become this person that is, it creates paranoia, basically, is one way of saying it, that Christ himself could be standing in front of you. And who's going to be the authority to tell you if that's the true Jesus or not? Because this man felt he'd seen Jesus, felt it was true. He was a believer. He is a believer. He's a Christian. I'm just using him as one way to express this larger principle. It's like we want to believe that there is a litmus test, that there is and we're so sure that we have the answer, either in the camp of I've got this prophecy and it's right, or of course he was deceived, here's why he was deceived, it didn't do this, this, and this, of course you could have seen this 1,000 miles off, but we don't know. I mean, people, can we just have that humility for a moment? I know it's frightening to say, I don't know, but you don't know. You don't know. You do not know. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know. You just don't know. And that's not going to go down easy for 99% of the planet, but you don't know. You really don't. And so, but the ego needs a landing place. We need certainty. And so we're all in one way or the other. And there's no room for humility. Can we have some humility? Is it possible to say I don't know? That I don't understand? Is every vision from the devil? And see, I'm still struggling with Christianity, still exploring, still struggling. And there's so many just areas that are really, they just seem to be more, it seems like it's a mirror of human consciousness rather than a mirror of truth. Like this phenomenon of rapture prediction, end times prediction. It just holds up a mirror to so many different aspects of, and you see videos of people so certain prior to the passing of the deadline, prior to September 23rd, and they're kind of excoriating, if that's the right word, or admonishing the non-believers, saying, you need to get right with Jesus. You're a mocker, you're a scoffer. Who are you to disbelieve what God has said? Or, so it's just, it's just like a multifaceted mirror that just meets everybody where they're at. And so what do you do in the face of that? And what do you do if you get one of these visions? I've had visions. I've had lots of visionary experiences. And who's going to arbitrate? Who's going to be the authority? Visions that seem powerfully true. Powerfully true. Now we can just get so paranoid that no vision fits our criteria, that it's impossible for God to speak to us, right? Possible to hear anything transcendent of the mundane, transcendent of this, of so-called reality, so-called matter, because we're so hard-boiled. And I don't think that's God. I don't think God, I just don't buy that. I think God is creativity itself. Of course God can speak to you. Of course God can present, astonishing things in this day and age. Of course. It's like we try to box him in that it's got to be this way, that things are going to happen. No. That's insane. Can't you see the smallness? Can't you see the imprint of your own smallness in your image of God? Isn't that obvious? God is infinite. Infinite, eternal. Infinite generativity, infinite creativity. Potentiality itself. Potency itself. All power. All possibility. And the fact that we need certainty shows more about our own shaky ego our own shaky ego than anything else. That we can't lose face. That's not God's message. Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord. Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up higher and higher, and he. And something like the rapture prophecy, it's like, be good with God. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't happen. All you can do is just trust in God. It doesn't, the prophecy makes no difference to that. You just trust in God and that's it, Okay, so we're here on earth in this oppressive, gravity-laden, confused nut house, this planet, this realm. And in a flash, we're somewhere else. You still just trust in God either way. It's still the optimal thing, Okay, the rapture's about to happen. Okay, I'm going to trust in God. Okay, the rapture's not happening. Okay, I'm going to trust in God. That's all you can really do. Right? Just be humble. You don't know what's happening. You don't know what's happening. You don't. You just don't. And potentially it's frightening, but who is that frightening to? That's to the small self, the you that is no longer you when all this ends. That's the ego. That's the identity that's invested in things that are not eternal. Who cares? Just be humble. You don't know. There's freedom in that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Why is that such a bad thing, people? Anyways. Yeah. May God bless and keep you. In Jesus' name, amen.